All right, so a very good morning to you. It's Friday, June 17th, 2022. We hope you had a good holiday yesterday and looking forward to the one coming on Monday. Again, as we roll through this period in Trinidad and Tobago, let's tell you what's coming down the pike. This morning, you'll be joining us for today's edition of AM Prime, to be followed by today's edition of Talking Point. That's an hour and a half from now, or so, 2 hours from now, or so. But we're talking in our first segment this morning with Martin George, attorney at law in Tobago. Among other things, he's chair of the Tobago Chamber of Commerce. We're talking about a different matter with him this morning, having to do with the law and the Attorney General. Also, we share with you some stuff from around the region. We're talking in the latter half of the program about something called Know Your Flow. We will tell you what that is when we get there. Also, we'll share with you what's in the Newsday Tobago, what's in the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago, and the COVID-19 numbers, the Newsday question and the responses to that. All right, now let's go to our first guest, our first segment this morning. Mr. George is there. Good morning, good to see you.
Yes, hi, good morning to you, Andy, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, so how did you spend your day yesterday?
It was very productive, Andy. I always look forward to holidays like this because it gives me a chance to get quite a bit of my office work done. So it was quite productive and useful.
That's interesting. You look forward to holidays so you can get a lot of your office work done. All right, so let's get to this issue, the issue of the situation regarding the Attorney General. You're one of those who says that he has questions to answer, if not going as far as to say he should pack his bags?
Well, I mean, Andy, it's the type of scenario that demands explanation. It not just requests or asks for explanation, it demands explanation. The Attorney General is the third highest office holder in the land. Let's not forget that a cabinet cannot be constituted unless you have an Attorney General. After the Prime Minister, the first person you appoint is the Attorney General. So it's not the type of scenario that can be swept under the rug or ignored or pushed to the side. It's something that the population will keep asking for answers in respect of, and I think out of respect for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, there ought to be some greater clarity brought to the situation. While I understand the Attorney General had put out an initial statement, I'm not sure it answers all the questions. And these questions keep lingering, they keep swirling around, and it doesn't appear that they're going to go away soon. I saw the Guardian newspaper had a recent editorial where they themselves called upon him and said, look, he cannot keep this wall of silence and say, that he's not answering any more questions. Even the Prime Minister, I think, will have to eventually face the music and give the nation some answers in regard to the situation. However, I would imagine that if at all there is a question of replacing the Attorney General, I guess that would be the Prime Minister's, he would be concerned with, who would be the replacement and maybe trying to get a suitable replacement, lined up. Names like, I guess, Gilbert Peterson, Senior Counsel would come to mind, and others. But the fact of the matter is, if there is the talk of replacement, then I would imagine that is what should be concerning the Prime Minister's deliberations at this point, so that you have an announcement to make to say, well, look, this person is replacing the Attorney General if the discussions have reached that stage. I don't know what level they're at, and I saw the Attorney General has, left the country on official business. I have not seen him condescend to any details or particulars, which I think is also concerning, because at the end of the day, once you are leaving an official state business, then I think there ought to be some accountability given to the population as to, okay, where are you going? What are you going on? What is the business about? That sort of thing. As yet, I haven't seen in the public space any clarity on that either.
Yeah, and that's a huge curiosity, because just a couple of weeks before that, he went on vacation. He said he went on a family vacation.
That's right.
And so
That's
on.
correct.
So if you're going on official business, we ought to know what the business is.
Yes, and that I found to be a little bit disturbing. That it appeared to be a sudden trip. He was in Parliament the day before. Then he left the morning. And there's absolutely nothing other than it's an official business. And we heard that, Mr. Stuart Young is acting as Attorney General. But the thing is, I think there ought to be some clarity given as to what business the Attorney General is out of the country on, because he can't be there without the permission of the Prime Minister. So even from the Prime Minister's office, maybe a release could have been given saying, well, okay, this is the reason why our Attorney General has to be out of the country. You see, Andy, I'll tell you why this matter is of such, why it runs so deep. If it is, as has been reported, there are, factual discrepancies, and that's the nicest way I can put it. If there are factual discrepancies concerning your status, particularly your status as senior counsel at the time when you acted in the matter, then the question would arise as to how did these factual discrepancies occur? Is it that you did not remember or did not recall when you were appointed senior counsel? I mean, that's a matter of public record. Even the notes from the case, the evidence, the transcripts may have recorded you or reported you as senior counsel. So, I think that if there are any such factual discrepancies, and I'm not saying there are, I am giving everyone the fullest and fairest opportunity to basically give their explanation. But if there are any such discrepancies, then I think these are the things that need clarity for the nation, because it would otherwise remain on the record as a very troubling scenario in terms of your ability to recall even your own status and your own appointment as senior counsel in a matter of such moment.
Right, and even if, there are lots of arguments inside that argument, because even if he didn't have silk per se, as you all call it, the question as to how junior he was raises itself, because the Miami court and the people there would not have rejected his submission out of hand if he did not have some significant role to play in the matter. And the people who he represented said that he was much more than that, and he was involved in discussions and negotiations of one sort or another in the matter at the earlier stages. So for him to say that, well, he was merely a note taker, and that was thrown out of court all entirely. So there's some issues there. And the question is, why would he have sought to do that? Quite apart from, as I say, around the issue as to when he, in fact, got silk. And there are some people who are saying that, in fact, he had silk at the time.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, because when people are appointed to senior counsel, it's something done by the president. You are given your instrument of appointment it's a public ceremony. Everybody knows the date when this happened. Even you must know what date, what year you would have been appointed, and the records will show. So it's not something that one can escape. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge. So to then try to, if it is that one then later tries to paint your role as, oh, well, I was just a junior note taker, when a record may surface to show that you were actually senior counsel and having senior counsel involvement in the same matter, then that becomes a bit concerning for the nation.
Yeah, and the people who he represented, Kwai Chung and company, said they disputed his decision in the matter.
They did.
Let's talk a little bit about the call to have the matter addressed at the Council of the Law Association. So 40 attorneys have signed it, and I looked down the list and looked through the names. This is an association with thousands of representatives. Does it raise any questions as to only 40 who signed, although the number is less than 40 to trigger the inquiry?
Right. So, the point is, those persons, I guess they would have had their reasons for wanting to invoke the Law Association's involvement in that regard. And, at the end of the day, it's their right if they wish to do so. And the rules do provide for, that type of approach to be made to the Law Association. The question is, where does it go from there? In other words, does it then now trigger what some are calling for, which ultimately is, in effect, a no confidence this motion to be brought, against the Attorney General. But I saw the Law Association, at least in its initial release earlier this week, the president took a very measured stance whereby she said that, look, they need to get the full investigation going. They need to get all the facts. And I think that's a sober, sensible, mature approach to take in the matter, notwithstanding, the baying of the hounds who might be calling for blood. You still have a duty to act in a responsible, reasonable, rational way in the circumstances.
Yeah, because there were people who were wondering, within a day or two of the matter becoming as public as it did, why is the Law Association being so silent? But
yes, there are those who have raised those questions. As I said, a statement was issued earlier this week. Some have said that it's a very mild statement. The president, I think, is indicating the need for caution. So, those are the factors that one has to look at.
Going into the matter, the other issues that, this matter has been hanging fire for almost 20 years, 18 years or so. That's
the inquiry, the Piarco inquiry.
Yes.
Yes. That in itself, Andy, is, really something that I think we ought to consider with, great concern as to why these things are hanging on so long in terms of the prosecution. If you remember, the two other American co-conspirators,
Burke and Hillman,
and the other individual, they were long since prosecuted in Miami courts. They served their sentences, etc. And that has been dealt with. So from the aspect of the Trinidadians involved, I'm not sure why we have taken so long or why this matter has taken so long. And remember, even in the Trinidad courts, there are matters that are still hanging on. They've been bedeviled by several constitutional motions, judicial review applications, etc. But notwithstanding that, there needs to be some closure brought to these matters.
Yeah, it's a kind of a mess. The matter itself taking all this time, and now you get to this point where the Attorney General is...
It's an imbroglio. Yes.
What do you want to be in a position where you might be able to attend that? So this is what will be known as an extraordinary meeting of the Law Association?
Of the Law Association, yes, indeed, yes, it would be. But of course, we wait to see what transpires there.
And it will be a general meeting as opposed to a meeting of the council of the association, right? And let's just explain the difference for people who don't know.
Well, the thing is, you see, remember, the council would just be the executive body, so to speak, whereas this now requires more than that, and it requires basically some sort of broader consensus. And of course, once a consensus position is arrived at, then of course the council can then take a decision and announce an official position of the Law Association. Of course, if persons want their voices to be heard, then of course, if a meeting is called, then they ought to attend in person and, air their views. Otherwise, those who attend are going to be the ones who end up being the representatives.
Yeah, I go back to the number again. You would think that the matter, had a sort of greater life in a sense.
More legs than that, yes. You'd think it had more legs than that, But the point is, I guess, persons may have their views, but may not necessarily be motivated that much to, step out from the shadows to, let their voices be heard.
Why do you think that might be the case? Because lawyers are among the most independent people in the society, in any society.
Well, the thing is, I think it's because the situation has also become politically charged. So therefore, persons are fearful and careful. So therefore, some are fearful that, look, if they step on political toes, that, they may, raise the ire and anger of, powerful politicians. And then some are careful because they may think, well, look, They don't want to ruin their chances of probably getting a state brief or a government contract or, employment from a state board, that might send them work. So, you have those who are fearful, those who are careful, but then you also have persons who are independent and robustly independent enough to be forthright and to be able to come out and call a spade a spade. Martin Daly has always been one of those exemplars in that regard, and I certainly salute him for that.
You think that there should be more of that kind of thinking? Because after all, that's one of the professions where people encourage.
Yes, and it's necessary for the society. It's necessary for the society. You can't have your senior attorneys kowtowing to politicians or political pressures or being afraid to speak out for fear of losing a state brief or not getting a state brief or, running afoul of the political directorate or the opposition or whatever. They ought to be able to stand up as independent, robust champions of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and say, hey, listen, this is what it looks like. This is how it is. And we're asking for answers. We're calling upon, the relevant parties to explain themselves, that kind of thing. But Andy, I think you have largely a scenario where, as I say, persons are fearful and careful.
What is your sense overall about the extent to which, because there's a claim, so the Prime Minister's hinted at it, if not directly, said it in one form or another, and there are the people who believe that the Law Association is sort of, at least leading figures in the Law Association have taken side politically.
Well, the thing is, of course, you can raise that as a suggestion, as a suspicion, as an assertion. But unless you have the direct, tangible evidence to prove that they are politically motivated, then it remains just that. And I am not going to delve in idle speculation, Andy, if you understand me, right? I don't have any tangible proof to say that anybody who has put their name to that petition is politically motivated. There are those who are, connecting dots and drawing conclusions. They look at the list of names and they are making their own assumptions. I don't do those things whatsoever, because at the end of the day, it's up to each individual to know what was their reason for doing so.
Yeah, but you think it provides fodder for the thoughts of some people.
It does provide fodder. And Trinidad and Tobago, this is a land of humor and rumor, and we love suspicions and conspiracy theories, and because I saw on social media lots of persons were circulating the list and say, look at the list, look at it,
look at the
draw
names.
your own conclusions, look at the names, that kind of thing. And I think that that's basically no real assessment that one can give to say that, look, this is politically motivated. There are some who then, pivoted it to suggest that it's racially motivated, and I couldn't quite fathom that argument whatsoever. So, I stay very clear of those things, Andy. At the end of the day, there's a list. There are persons who put their names. They have asked for this, and it is their right within the law, within the ambit of the rules of the Law Association. And at the end of the day, it's the association to then decide what they do with it.
Yeah. To what extent you're familiar with the conduct of such meetings in the association, how the meetings go? Is there a lot of acrimony? Is there a lot of, what transpires? How?
Well, Andy, the point is, usually you have, if one recalls the last one, which was the issue with the Chief Justice, where there was a big meeting to deal with the question of, how they're going to treat with the allegations which were made in respect of the Chief Justice. From what I understand, I was not present, but from the reports I got in relation to the meeting, yes, there was, much, strenuous argument on both sides, but at the end of the day, it's something that is carried by a vote. So, and the majority vote is what, carries the day.
In this case, what is there a number that will it goes on attendance, right? And if the majority in the room, whatever percentage of the association that it represents, once the majority votes in a certain way, the motion has to be carried, right?
Well, once you meet the threshold, the minimum threshold in terms of the rules of the association, and you have that minimum threshold in attendance, and the rules are followed, and the procedures are undertaken, Andy, then, I mean, of course, you abide by the results of the proceedings.
Yeah. So
and that's why I'm saying those who are in the shadows, who might be quietly voicing their opinions, and they don't want to come out of the shadows and attend the meeting, then they have no right to complain afterwards. Because in other words, this is the place, this is the forum. If you are a member of the association, then you ought to come and have your voice heard if it is that you want to make a defense or have your input.
Yeah, and the result, let's say the majority votes a particular way, that simply will mean that he loses membership in the association. That's all, right? It doesn't go further than that.
No. It's not a question of losing membership. No. I mean, the fact of the vote of no confidence is just simply, it's really just to send a signal. It's really to send a signal. Because remember, the Attorney General is the titular head of the bar.
Right.
So therefore, if your bar says that they have no confidence in you, then of course that is a powerful signal. I mean, it means nothing in terms of removing him or anything of the sort from a legislative perspective. It's only, that's the prerogative of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, to make those kinds of decisions. But the point is, it does not look good. And that's where the pressure comes in.
And depending on how it goes, if it goes against him in the association, then that will impose a greater sort of responsibility on the Prime Minister to take action.
I would think so, but then look at what happened with the scenario with the Chief Justice. Remember, the association, they did bring their sanction, they did make their findings against the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice initiated legal proceedings against them. It went all the way to the Privy Council. The Chief Justice was not successful at the Privy Council level, but at the end of the day, the Law Association's sanctions did not have any power to trigger the removal of the Chief Justice, which is what some were calling for. So similarly, that's what I'm saying, Andy. Here again, it's really just a signal you are sending, and you are hoping that, it brings pressure through moral suasion and ethical persuasion. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the Prime Minister or the government or the Cabinet necessarily have to act on your motion.
Yeah, so that he could conceivably remain as Attorney General.
Yeah, you could dig your heels in. You could dig in your heels and say, look, I'm not moving. That's what the Chief Justice said, and he did so. And he's still our Chief Justice.
Yeah, about the Prime Minister feeling any greater responsibility to take action if the association says one thing, and he can decide.
Well, you see, the thing is, I think what our leaders rely on very heavily and very accurately is the fact that we really are a 9-day wonder type of society. So, they know that, look, all right, the matter is heated now, it's fanning the flames. Andy Johnson is talking about it on his morning show. But as far as they're concerned, by the time next week, Andy will have another guest, Andy will have something else to talk about, and the nation will begin to forget about it. So I think they count very heavily on that type of scenario, and as I say, very accurately too.
Yeah, is that a good or bad trait among us? That is part of our nature, but does it work for us in the long term?
On serious issues, no, it doesn't, because it means that we really, at the end of the day, never follow through on any serious matter to the end. We all get riled up, at the start, and everybody's talking about it and everybody's agitated, but the point is we never give it the legs to go through to say, well, look, we are going to make some meaningful change as a result. By time tomorrow or the next day, there's some new bacchanal or some new drama or some new, story that is captivating the news, some next DJ fighting with his girlfriend or wife, or,
Wow.
and these things actually motivate us and captivate our interest even more than the serious issues.
Yeah, it's interesting that you raise that because that's a big thing at the moment as well.
Well, that is what I'm telling you. That's big news. That's big news. And the police fighting with people outside a fete in the savannah yesterday. Those are the things that seem to be of greater interest and significance to our population.
Right. But it's good you raised that because I saw the thing last evening and it's curious and it's interesting from on both sides where you sit because what I understand is that the police were responding to assaults on at least one of them. I think and so the man, I think he assaulted the officer in the process of being arrested or being questioned.
Right, and you see, Andy, it comes down to the question of what is a reasonable use of force policy in response. You see, okay, so yes, you take action to subdue the suspect. When the suspect is on the ground and he's clearly posing absolutely no danger to anyone else, and you see a police officer running up from a distance and, firing a kick at his head, that's where I think questions will arise. Was that a necessary use of force? And you see, and we have to be mature enough as a society, Andy, to be able to disaggregate sense from nonsense, disaggregate what is reasonable from what is unreasonable. So in other words, I would say prior to that, you can probably give a valid explanation for the use of force by the police in this scenario. That action did not appear with respect, from what I saw and I guess what has been circulated, it did not appear to be, on the face of it, a necessary action as part of subduing the suspect.
It was not warranted.
He appeared to have already surrendered. He did not appear to be putting up resistance at that point.
He was being subdued.
And he was being subdued. So therefore, I think that the PCA is right to launch an investigation if it's that aspect of it they were looking at. And you see, police officers need to understand the limits of their authority and power. And we have made the call repeatedly. You've seen Justice Frank Sipasad. He has repeatedly called upon police officers to be held accountable for their actions when they abuse their powers. He has called for them to be made to pay personally when they cause the state to lose matters in court, and the state has to pay, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in damages. He has made that call, and it's a call that is valid, and it's a call which ought to resonate, because I think unless and until you start imposing that type of sanction, you are going to continue to see these egregious abuses of power, because by and large, there appears to be little or no accountability or reckoning, and certainly no financial accountability that any police officer suffers for these types of actions.
Well, thank you very much, my friend Martin George.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, Andy, as always. And, I always say that, these talk shows, Andy, we are playing our part to try to elevate and raise the level of discourse in the nation. Of course, we love our Pikong, our Mobilang, our Old Talk, our Bacchanal, but sometimes there are serious issues which need to be disaggregated, discussed, and analyzed in a serious, mature, rational level. And that's why I always try to make the time to attend your show whenever you invite me, because I think we need to play this role in the nation to bring some balance to the scales.
Thank you very much. We will keep talking.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so we take a break. When we come back, we share with you the numbers for COVID-19 on this day, as well as look at the Newsday question and the responses to that. Stay with us.